A big thanks for the possibility to present our points of view on the regulation for sustainable use on pesticides. And we all know that Saravina will present tomorrow her report in the ENVI committee. And as EPP, we want to go a constructive way with a realistic and holistic view. Especially in light of the war in the Ukraine, we must focus on European food security. But unfortunately, we do not see this approach in both. In the Commission proposal, we know since months, and we absolutely not see it in the proposal from the Greens, from Saravina. Just to sum up with the proposal of the European Commission, this proposal is absolutely not fit for purpose, and we have seen it in many ways. And also a lot of citizens have criticized, and there were more than 8,000 comments, most of them in a negative way, a lot of them coming from farmers to the proposal from the Commission. And this must be seen from the Commission that there are a lot of things in which are not acceptable. Especially in the point of reduction targets are a lot of points we cannot agree. As EPP, we have talked with the European Commission on different occasions in this file, and these proposals were simply irrational targets. Even the European Commission cannot answer questions for the member states and also for us as members of the European Parliament when we make questions really in detail how it looks with food security, especially on crops like, for example, sugar beets or potatoes, because they don't have a general overview on this topic. Focus a bit more on the report of Saravina. To be honest, for me and for our group, it was quite irritating to see her report. The European Greens have even more strict approach than the European Commission. Saravina wants the reduction targets of -80% instead of the already high and a lot of criticized proposal from the Commission with a reduction target for 2030 for -50%. Not even the European Commission suggested such strict rules. There are also changes in the time frame of calculation, which makes it even more and more strict. And a lot of member states already commented that this is not even workable at all. And this is not workable for governance, is also not workable for family farms in Europe. This means for me it's a real weakening of European food security, especially in the light of war in the Ukraine. We cannot allow that this is happening. European food security must be a priority topic in the European Parliament, and also must be seen in this report that food security is one of the key elements of this report. And it is a fact that the proposal will deteriorate European food security. A study from the University of Wageningen shows that if we implement the report from the Commission, it would lead to at least 20% less harvest in Europe, not even knowing what the impact of Saravina's report will be. And let's talk about one thing which is highly criticized from a lot of farmers associations and member states. It's a topic of sensitive areas and the total ban which the Commission proposed on sensitive areas. We know that there was presented a non-paper from the European Commission, and Saravina made in her report a small step forward, but even this is not workable at all. This means no way of cultivation of different crops in the sensitive areas, because even they need pesticides. Also, they need pesticides which be in the report from Saravina banned. I give you just a practical example from my home country, Austria. This means a minus of, for example, and the crop everyone knows, for example, potato production in Austria will decrease about -10% because these potatoes are planted in sensitive areas. And even with the ban, and it's not possible to make a change in organic production, because even the products for organic productions would not be allowed, as Saravina has proposed it in her report, because all these pesticides used on potatoes are with an emergency authorization, which would be banned in Saravina's proposal. And to have for examples for potato, with I can say it for Austria, there's a quite good self-supply right now. With these extreme lows, and it's not only for Austria, we see it from a lot of other member states at all, means food imports for basic food products where we are able in the European Union to produce it ourselves. To sum up this proposal from Saravina, it's a treating of the European food security, and it's absolutely not in our line, and it was not a step to a compromise. It was more a step to an ideological idea. Finally, Russian war in the Ukraine puts food production under pressure and leads us in the middle of the worst food crisis in our century. The EPP Group therefore wants a postponement of all legal projects that makes food more expensive, less available, treats the security of food supply, and adds further burdens to the European farmers, feed the people in Europe and beyond. And when we talk about the next step the Commission has to come up, then is this a clear proposal, clear ideas, as the Council has asked the Commissions for holistic impact assessment, giving more details about more specific questions, and even make some new proposal on the most criticized point. So overall, we as EPP want the Commission really to come forward with new clear idea. We want food security to become a top priority in the EU, and especially it has to be in this paper one of the most securities. The European Commission must safeguard European food security in their legislation. The Green Deal must not lead to product imports from overseas. This is fuels for climate change. Thank you much for this first statement, and I will hand over to my colleague.
Thank you for this possibility to present also few another topics more focused on this agri side, where I am shadow in EPP Group. I will start first that when Farm to Fork proposal was presented, we all asked for impact assessment, and we didn't get it. It was also, we heard that it was hidden, that they have some impact assessment, it was hidden, and later we got some impact assessment which was made in USA, Wageningen University. We don't have official EU Commission impact assessment on food security. So that's the reason why we fully support the decision of Council of the EU, which asked in December that we must have this comprehensive complementary impact assessment. And as Alexander said, first, war in Ukraine, especially in the role, how it influences on price of fertilizers, price of energy, food price at the end, and we see the problem of food security, not because of availability, but because of affordability of the food. And this is the one topic which is explicitly asked in this impact assessment. Second, EU long-term dependence on food import. We have today the highest standards in the world. No other continent has such a standards. And for sure, if we will have higher standards in future, our farmers and also our consumer will ask to have such an import of the food which we have in the Europe. And there is no area in the world where we can import such a food. So it means that we will import food which is below our standards, and competitiveness of our farmers is under the threat, and especially small farmers. What is also asked in this council decision. We can see, and it's clear that in Europe we forgot on these three basic securities: military, energy, and food security. And this situation is comparable with energy situation in Europe today. we shut down many, I don't know, in Germany, many nuclear power plants, and now we start to mine and import lignite. And it can happen also here in the food, the same situation. And I think that it's really too important topic, and it's no time for gambling with food security. I mentioned competitiveness of small farmers. I'm also a small farmer in Slovenia. I'm apple producer. I have three standards, quality standards. First, international global gap standard, which allow me that I can sell apples all around the Europe, which also part of this global standardization is that measure of rest of pesticides. I have integrated pest management and the standard for this integrative production, and also a local standard of selected quality of origin of apples from Slovenia. I know very well what I speak about, and for example, for my farm, which is 3 hectares of apples, at the end it means this cost of standardization 1 euro cent per kilo. The price for me, which I got, is between 30 and 35 cents for these apples. And I have 3 hectares of apples. There are the average of farms in country like mine in Slovenia, where is the average 7 hectare. Now it will be obligatory to have impact pest management, integrated pest management for all farms, with all bureaucracy which is behind this. And this is also one topic which we think it's necessary to take into account this new bureaucratic burdens which will bring this and costs for farmers. And in this, this is also asked from council and also from our side to have a clear in this impact assessment how it will influence on the small farmers. And on one hand, we want to have more small farmers which ensure this sustainability in agriculture, and I'm sure that this proposal, such like it was proposed by Commission, will destroy many small farmers. Question of availability of alternatives to plant products. We have no alternatives, as Alexander said, for many plants, and it's really not responsible what we are doing. If we come few more sentences about sensitive areas. In sensitive areas, again, I will come back to my country, to Slovenia. We are the country with the highest percentage of Natura. 38% of all area is covered by Natura. If we add regional parks, national parks, water protected area, it's more than half of Slovenia area which is covered by this protection. 45% of agriculture land is inside sensitive areas. It means 45% of arable land, 33% of vineyards, 31% of orchards, 32% of olive trees, and 23% of hop plantations. There is no production, because also neither products which are allowed in organic production cannot be used on sensitive areas. And we know that in many cases in climate like we have, with more humidity than in Mediterranean area, you must use some plant protection products. And I studied agronomy, and we called this health of plant protection. And also for me, I use also aspirin this week, not because I like it, but because I was in USA and they had the climatization that I had to freeze. So I think that we must demystify this. And when I read this Sarah Wiener proposal, I can say for me this is the criminalization of use of pesticides. And this is really something what is not allowed. This is not fact-based. This is ideological proposal, and I'm sure that it is very dangerous. I organized last week a big event in Slovenian parliament in the second chamber council, and there were also many farmers and representative of Chamber of Agriculture and Forestry. He explained that we must be very careful because this proposal is very sensitive between farmers, and there is a growing Euroscepticism in rural areas about such a crazy proposals which are prepared here in the European Parliament. So I think I fully agree that first wait for this the impact assessment till this no discussion, and we must be serious enough about and responsible enough about such a proposal which can cause food poverty in the Europe.
You wouldn't be inviting us here if you were sure that you could vote down this proposal tomorrow. Can you tell us how the vote on this report is going to look like? I mean, are you going to have a majority against it if it's so unreasonable, crazy, dangerous, criminalizing the use of pesticides? How's it going to go? Thank you.
That's democracy, what will happen in the upcoming few weeks. So we already will start with our procedure of negotiations. But for me, it's as it stands right now, for me, it seems not possible to find in all details a compromise with Saravina. So there might be two compromises on the table. There might be two opportunities on the table when it should come to a vote, and then we will see. So I think what we need is, and when we talk about a reduction of pesticides, I'm fully aware that we need a reduction of pesticides and that we have to get rid of very harmful pesticides, of course. And this is something what we are always aware. But we have to link it to other points. We have to link it to food security. We have to link it to a workable way for our family farms in Europe. And we have to protect our consumers for food imports with lower standards from third country. This will be our main points when we will propose our ideas. And these are points I cannot see in Saravina's report. So we will try to work. We will present our ideas. It will be done in the upcoming few days and weeks, where we'll present our amendments to her report. And then we will see if it's possible to work in a few points together with other colleagues, or if you try to find in some points new majorities in this house, and then we'll see what the votes will bring. But I see it from a lot of colleagues from other groups that there is a lot of skepticals, especially when we take the topic of sensitive areas. We know it from a lot of other countries that even a lot of people from Renew and Socialists are not in favor of the proposal. So there is a quite big skeptical majority in our house.
Thank you. Sophie Dupuis for Context, French media. One question, you mentioned, Mr. Bernhuber, the need to postpone all proposals that could present a risk for food security. Are you still asking for the removal of the proposal for the sustainable use of pesticides? I think the EPP used to say that. Is it still your position? And maybe now that time frame has been defined in the ENVI committee, can you give us more details on the next step, how the EPP will work on the draft report of Saravina? Thank you.
It was the line of EPP that we call for even a postponement until we have a holistic impact assessment, as my colleagues say, because we are not only working on a sustainable use of pesticide directive, we are also working on for example, national restoration law, which is also affecting lots of areas where we see a decreasing of food production in there. And there is also no study which is combining both of these measures. And even I'm not talking about, for example, a methane strategy and so on. So there are a lot of legislation on the table right now where we have no holistic view about all of them. This was what my colleague Franc Bogovič mentioned. There was no holistic impact assessment where all the measures planned in the Green Deal and the Farm to Fork and biodiversity strategy are affected at all. But we see it as a realistic way that negotiations are going on right now. We are waiting for additional data from the Commission, which the Council has asked for. And right now there is a proposal from the ENVI Committee with a possible vote in July and a vote in plenary in September. But there were no negotiations between the Agri and the ENVI Committee right now. And the Agri Committee has exclusive competences at this file. And so we are strongly calling as EPP, as it is the rule of procedure in our house, that we have, first of all, a vote in the Agri Committee, following up and accepting the text with exclusive competences from the Agri Committee and the ENVI Committee, and then we will have a vote in plenary. This would be our our proposals, but now we are waiting for further negotiations between the Agri and the ENVI reporter if they can agree on a timetable. This is also what called the chairs of both committees.
If I may add, there is the basic question how to amendment proposal on which we don't have impact assessment, and this 50% is from the air. It's no fact-based, evidence-based things on which it was put in the regulation. Opposite, when they put 50%, then they invent these sensitive areas. And when we came practical to sensitive areas, we see that, for example, in my country, 45% of agricultural land will be in sensitive areas. So that's the reason why I said that I organized this debate in the council, because I think it's too serious proposal and we must open debate, because sometimes we do everything, the procedure go on, and in the end we get regulation. I think it's too responsible and too serious proposal to go on this way without impact assessment. On another side, as I said, for example, in my country, we reduced use of pesticides in last 30 years for 50%. In last 7 years for 24%. Respect this directive, and it was interesting to have in that conference we had president of Slovenian Beekeepers Association, Boštjan Noč. They initiate World Bee Day, so they are very active. We have very good beekeepers. And he arrived and he explained on the conference when he spoke about pesticide use. For sure, I'm not in favor for use of pesticides. But in last 11 years, since 2011 in Slovenia, we had no murder of bees because of pesticides use, because we respect each other. And I think that this is what is important, that we have knowledge, we respect each other, and also that work on the base of the rules. And on the base of the rules which we have today, it's no problem. Also for bees in my country, where we have 11,000 beekeepers on 2 million population, is the highest number of beekeepers. And so I'm sure that it's really necessary to take care about this proposal.
So, thank you very much, Raffaela Scheidrath, Austrian TV and Radio. Mr. Bernhuber, on one hand side, you said that you are aware that hard pesticides or threatful pesticides have to be abolished. On the other side, you say you're going to vote for postponing all the legislative proposals right now. So what exactly is your message in this? And the second question, you always argument with food security for Europe. But where's this kind of threat for food security? Because we know, for example, in the Eastern European countries, they are flooded with, for example, corn from Ukraine, and say we are not allowed to produce more because the price is already that low. So how does it? How does this argument really? Is it valid in this context? Thank you.
About food security, I think we really have to take a global global view on this topic and see how the way of grain transport were not working right now. And we will see that the food production or the grain production in Ukraine, for example, will really decrease extremely in this year, because a lot of fields were not planted at all. And I think we have a global responsibility also in our line, that we can provide also other parts of the world with food. And what I also want to mention, that in this view, we need a big overview at this topic, but we also have to focus really on specific crops which are highly affected with this proposal. focus really on crops, how they can focus on the family farms in some regions. How can they produce further on crops? And as the proposal is right now on the table, for example, give you an example from Austria, Wachau, one of the most famous wine growing areas we have is under a sensitive area, Natura 2000 area. And as it is in the proposal of the Commission, it would be not anymore a World Cultural Heritage, because it wouldn't be possible with any pesticides, even though organic pesticides, to grow up their vine. And with the proposal of Sarah Wiener, for example, allowing only organic pesticides mean we have to change a whole region in organic production, which is absolutely not fair, and which means in the fact that we spray, and especially in wine growing areas, hundreds of kilograms or tons of copper and sulfur. And then someone has to explain me where is the impact, the positive impact for the environment. This is why we make this kind of new legislation. We want to do something better for the environment. But when we spray hundreds of kilograms of copper in vine growing areas in sensitive areas, I cannot see a positive impact to the environment. We have already good ways of integrated pest management. I think we can go one step forward, especially in sensitive areas. How can we do more in these areas? How we can be more strict, but not saying only organic pesticides are allowed in this area. This is like when we talk about Eigentum, what is the owning by property? This is like a loss of property for farmers. Was it fine for you? Okay, sorry, about the way of postponement. I think I also answered it a bit in the first question. We see a lot of legislation coming up very, very fast for us. And a lot of legislation going parallel, especially when we talk about the National Restoration Law. Even they are both affecting food security, and we want to, and I think we already have an existing, especially for pesticides, where we already have an existing legislation on the table where we are working on right now. Sometimes it seems as like there is no legislation right now on the table. We have already a legislation on the table where we are working right now, and there are member states who are doing very well in implementing this directive, and others where we know they are a bit struggling with implementation. This was also why the Commission was coming forward with a directive. But when we want to make a new legislation, and I'm fine to do it, but in a very sufficient way, with a good implementation, with a good process of having a round table with all involved groups, then it's for us no problem to improve the legislation, but not in a way it was proposed by the Commission. This is why we are really struggling with the proposal from the Commission, where we know it was not in a very struggling with a lot of details, and it was not done in a good way, and not with a work relation with the member states, because they are coming up with a lot of questions where they do not understand the text as the Commission has proposed. Where we see a lot of things. Why has the Commission come up with a non-paper? Because they see they made mistakes. And this is not a legislation what we expect from European institutions.
I would like to have some examples of your counter-proposals. Can you give us really some concrete, precise examples? What are you going to propose? Are you going to propose to make a list of safe pesticides? Are you going to propose to eliminate the concept of sensitive areas? Something that will make us understand what is, for you, the concept that it's going to work as a counter-proposal to the draft that you have been criticizing right now. Thank you.
Yes, I've thought a lot about this, and to give constructive proposals. And for me, for example, first have clear impact assessment, and then take in account also big differences between countries. We have countries on which we have pesticides use 0.5 kilo per hectare or 8 kilo per hectare. And so taking into account the situation, if you have good trends in the countries, if you have not so many problems that in other countries, that is necessary to have bigger differentiation. That's a question if it's better to have directive or regulation, because this regulation makes the same situation in all countries minus 50%. For example, we have good proposals, but good data, but because a lot of sensitive areas, we have 59%, not 50, as our target, national target in this legislation. Then next, I fully support that we have bigger toolbox of solutions which allow farmers to go in this way. First, we have new CAP, and integrated pest management is one of the measures in this green architecture. And it's to attract people to be part of this, not obligatory for each, but with some additional money, what is possible to do attract people that they will join to this system, which reduce the pesticides use. Then perhaps when I thought perhaps have this obligatory integrated pest management for bigger farmers, not for first hectare, I don't know, for 10 hectares of orchards or arable land or something like this, that we will not destroy the small farmers, because as I said, the costs are more than €1,000 for certification of this, and additional advisory services, which we don't have enough people and other things. So I think to think about this solution. Then new solutions in genomic technique. We don't have legislation on the table, and we will not have in this legislation term the proposal which allow resistant varieties and other things, and that we, with new technique, genomic technique, we solve this problem and allow us to use less pesticides. Another, this regulation and quick regulatory framework. We need 10 years for regulation to get a new active substance, also either biotic or classical active substance. So there are many things which must be done in parallel or in first, then we allow that we go in this trend which we want, which we work, as I explained also in my country and also in the Europe. So there must be this positive approach to this, and I think through this we can do a lot. Precision farming is another tool which is also supported now in CAP. And this year we started with CAP in year 2024 for CAP 24-27. So give a possibility to go in this direction. We have in first pillar now 25% for greening. It was no greening in first pillar before, but somebody want to overtake all these things and do farming in many cases impossible for farmers, and as I explained, especially for small farmers, and the competitiveness will be under the attack. And when you ask about Ukraine grain, yeah, that's a problem. The price of this grain, and the farmers from countries which are close to this, which are on the border to Ukraine, they all ask for support. And unfortunately, European budget is not big enough to support all things which we accept in the parliament, either in energy field, either in the food field.
I have two questions, if I can. The first is about cooperation between Agri and ENVI, which is obviously becoming a bigger and bigger problem. There was this request from the Agri Committee to have a hearing on the productivity that was blocked by ENVI, and I just wondered if you had a comment on that, and maybe a bit further about the cooperation between the two committees. And then my next question is about an element of Sarah Wiener's report that hasn't been touched upon, I think quite an innovative element, which was about this proposal for a national risk-based tax on pesticides to fund the transition towards sustainable agriculture. You were talking about funding the transition towards IPM. Do you have a view on this idea for a national tax based on the Denmark model? Is this interesting? Do you support this? Thank you.
Thank you much. First to the point of hearing. I'm not aware about future talks have been fought, so there's still no agreement about a hearing. But I cannot see the reason why we don't want to have a hearing, why we don't want to invite the Commission that they present ideas or newest latest data or studies to our members. So I'm not aware why Mr. Coffin wants to block this hearing. Even this is absolutely in line with our timetable. Having a hearing in April or May would not affect our work on this file. And about the idea of something of making a tax, I'm not in line to have something like that in a proposal of sustainable use of pesticides. Taxation is a completely national topic, and for me, it's absolutely not the right place to have something like that in the file. And I haven't heard not a lot of positive comments coming from member states about this idea. This idea of Sarina, it's her right to present it, but a national text at all is not the right place in this file. Even, for example, there's not the right place in this file when we talk about fast authorization process, which is something where we're calling on, but we know it's not the right place because we have to change, for example, another directive. So, in fact, focus on the topics, making a review of what is on the table on our directive we already have, and also there is no mentioning of taxation.
Любовь Пронина, Bloomberg News. Thank you very much. Are you getting any signals, any information, any kind of guidance from the Commission? What's going to be in this impact assessment? Do they tell you when you may get this impact assessment so that you can base your own decisions on that? So if you can speak a little bit about the timeline of expectations. And because, as you say, and not just you, that it's a crazy proposal, what's the chance that it will be scrapped altogether and you can start from scratch? Thank you.
Yeah, we know that there is 6 months, what Council asked. There was some signal that they will prepare earlier, but official, I don't know.
We only know that they have to answer in the first step in the first 3 months. So they will answer in the next few weeks, the first round, what they will present in detail.
You don't have any clue what? Could it be scrapped altogether if people continue to say it's crazy and unworkable?
I think what we try right now is to make our suggestion. Maybe just to sum up very quickly, we are not here to make a completely block of this. We also will prepare very well designed ideas. Talking about sensitive areas, we have our red lines that there has to be pesticides allowed in sensitive areas. This is a line for EPP. Talking about the reduction targets, yes, we are aware of reduction. Yes, we are in favor of reduction, but linking it, for example, to different sub-targets. We don't know what be in the future. We know that the authorization process lasts about 12 years for a new kind of pesticides. So we have to link it to other sub-goals, for example. And for integrated pest management, for example, it's not working if we have one idea of how farmers are allowed to use pesticides under which restrictions. Why don't the Commission want to work together with local authorities? There are already good examples on the market. Working together with local governance, local authorities, because they are aware how integrated pest management is working, and they are working already very fine together with farmers. So this is, for example, some proposals from our side.
I have a question on the narrative of food security, because you say that the SUR is a threat to that, but then you mentioned that it will especially affect high-value crops like grapes used for wine. Meanwhile, we have 700 or so scientists who signed a letter saying there's no evidence that the SUR would negatively affect food security. So what's your response to that? And also, what's your response to the environmental and health groups that are so heavily advocating for the SUR and who are sending letters, who are campaigning that this law is necessary to protect human health and environmental health? Thank you.
I think we really have, and this was what we are criticizing so much, there is no deep look into regions with specific crops, especially vegetable farmers, for example, potato farmers, the way of producing sugar beets in some regions where they are struggling with specific beetles, for example, where we know we are struggling with the proposal right now for urban farming, greenhouse farming inside of in the cities, next to cities, where the proposal on the table right now is nearly a ban of glasshouse production, maybe in cities, in regions next to cities. This is not mentioned anyway, so there really has to be big improvements done. And not at all at the general production of amount of wheat, for example, but really focus on details and take a look at details, because there are families, they are affected, and we have no answer for them. We have absolutely no answer. We get no answer from the Commission for them. What is the answer for the farmer has a greenhouse in a city where the proposal right now is a total ban of pesticides? He cannot produce any more tomatoes, paprika, or something else.
Okay, I think there is one. Okay, last question, and then we will really have to finish.
An epistemological question: why is the sugar beet? Why is problems in sugar beet production a food security issue? I cook pretty much everything that grows. I've never grown a sugar beet, and as far as I know, we're only seeing massive monocultures of sugar beets in parts of Europe because they're turned into ethanol by big agro-industrial companies like, for example, Raiffeisen and so forth. Why is that a food security matter?
I think we as EPP stand for in the individual position what food is consumed by everyone. So if someone wants to consume sugar, then it should be products including sugar. And what we are afraid is that we decrease the sugar production in Europe, and in the same way we have a higher import of sugarcane sugar, which is produced with even not that standards we have in Europe. Where we see in Austria the example that there will be where we have two sugar factories, and one seems to be closed even because of loss of pesticides right now. And this is a loss of 200 working places. And when there is the demand on sugar on the market, and not only for ethanol, that's something we can separate. When we talk about way of fuels in the future, it's a completely other topic where we might have the chance to produce a part of fuels by ourselves instead of importing fuels from third countries. So it's a whole discussion we have to lead on, but yeah.
About sugar beet, in Slovenia we don't produce sugar beet, but I know my agronomist, sugar beet is the culture which need 4 to 5 years rotation. It cannot be monoculture in year per year like corn, for example. And it is very good for agro things, rest of organic and other things. So it's each 4th or 5th year, it must be rotation. But about this food security, you know, organic production, this is also in this study of Genigen, and all we know this is it between, I don't know, 20 to 50% less production if you use these techniques. And for sure, also expensive production. And here we come to the amount of food, how much we produce, and who can buy this food. And this is dynamic, and we had one hearing on Agri, and there was a third generation of organic farmer from Austria, and he complained on this target 25% of organic food, because he said there will be not enough demand for this food, and we will destroy organic farmers. So here I think that this must go hand in hand, the increase and demand. And during this crisis of expensive food, we saw problems, organic milk in France and other things, that there is not enough demand for such a food. So in this case, we can speak about both sides, with more organic and also sensitive area which don't allow. We all know that in worldwide 40% of food is lost because of pests and diseases. It's less in Europe, more in other parts of Europe, but because of problems with diseases and pests. In area, as I said, for example, vineyards, perhaps for somebody is not necessary, for somebody is. It's also a culture. Sometimes in area like in Slovenia, Austria, with more humidity than in Mediterranean part, sometimes you need to use once, twice pesticides which are not allowed in these areas. So that's a dynamic process, and I think this is what we need to get out with from one serious impact assessment and to go in this direction.